In our ongoing series about the US presidential election, today we are going to discuss the two party system in the USA. The American political system, as we know it today, is deeply rooted in history, dating back to the early days of the nation. To understand how we got here, let's rewind to the aftermath of the American Revolution. The newly formed United States was facing a fundamental question: how should this vast and diverse nation be governed? George Washington, the first president of the US, warned against the dangers of political parties in his farewell address. Despite this, the political landscape of the 1790s witnessed the emergence of two distinct factions, the Federalist and the Democratic Republicans. Alexander Hamilton, a visionary leader and proponent of a strong central government, spearheaded the Federalist movement. He believed in a robust treasury, a flourishing financial sector, a powerful national army, and a political executive representing all states. Hamilton's ideas were deeply influenced by the success of the British imperial system. On the other side of the spectrum was Thomas Jefferson, a southern plantation owner from Virginia. Jefferson prioritized state sovereignty over federal authority, fearing that too much power in the hands of a centralized government would jeopardize individual liberties and local interest. Hamilton's approach mirrored that of the British Empire, emphasizing a strong financial sector and centralized economic policies. Jefferson, however, believed in empowering local interest and agrarian communities, fearing the risk associated with speculative financial ventures. He held a strong opinion that agriculture would be the mainstay of American society. His preference was for political power to reside with individuals and their legislatures, not in the central government. These foundational disagreements laid the groundwork for what would become the two party system in the United States, shaping the course of American politics for centuries to come. By the mid 19th century, with the decline of Federalists, the Democratic Republican Party existed less as a united political group than as a loose coalition of personal and sectional factions. The fissures in the party were fully exposed by the election of 1824, when the leaders of the two major factions, Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams, were both nominated for president. In the election, despite that Andrew Jackson received the majority of the popular vote, John Quincy Adams became the president. Following the election, the Democratic Republicans split into two major groups: the National Republicans, who became the nucleus of the Whig Party in the 1830s and were led by John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay, while the Democratic Republicans were organized by Martin Van Buren and were led by Andrew Jackson. In 1829, when Andrew Jackson finally took over the US presidency, the national politics polarized around Jackson and his opposition, and two parties grew out of the old Republican Party. The Democratic Republicans, or Democrats, adhering to Jackson, and the National Republicans, or Whigs, opposing him. The Whig Party mainly focused on opposing the policies of Andrew Jackson. Modeled after the British Whigs, who opposed absolute monarchy, the Whig Party accused Jackson of executive overreach and often referred to him as King Andrew. On the other hand, the Jacksonian Democrats painted the Whigs as a party of wealthy northern elites who wanted to sidestep the will of the people. The Democrats and the Whigs were the first to adopt party-based customs in the Senate. In the 1830s, for example, members of the two parties began sitting on the opposite sides of the Senate chamber, with the Democrats gathering to the right of the presiding officer and the Whigs to the left. The party in the majority controlled the chairmanships and a majority of seats on most, if not all, of the standing committees. In the 1840s, each party began determining committee assignments of their members and submitted list of assignments to be approved by the full Senate. However, we are aware that the Whig Party no longer exists, and it was the question of slavery that led to its demise. In 1849, California petitioned to join the Union as a free state, which threatened to upset the delicate power balance between free and slave-holding states. So was introduced the Compromise of 1850, a series of 5 bills which welcomed California as a free state, but also strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act that legally required northern states to prosecute and return runaway slaves. The Compromise of 1850, signed into law, was immediately and widely unpopular with both northern and southern Whigs, who each had their own grievances. The divisive slavery issue came to a head again in 1854 with the passing of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which authorized new territories and states to decide for themselves if they wanted to allow slavery. Anti-slavery Whigs, deciding that their party wasn't sufficiently committed to halting the spread of slavery, splintered off and formed the Republican Party along with the anti-slavery Democrats. Among the former prominent Whigs who turned Republican were Thomas Stevens, William Seward, and Abraham Lincoln. At their first presidential nomination convention in 1856, the Republicans nominated John C. Fremont on a platform that called on Congress to abolish slavery in territories, reflecting a widely held view in the North. Although ultimately unsuccessful in his presidential bid, Fremont carried 11 northern states and received nearly 2/5 of the electoral vote. During the first 4 years of its existence, the party rapidly displaced the Whigs as the main opposition to the dominant Democratic Party. In 1860, the Democrats split over the slavery issue as the northern and southern wings of the party nominated different candidates. Thus, the single Republican candidate, Abraham Lincoln, was able to capture the presidency, winning 18 northern states and receiving 60% of the electoral vote, but only 40% of the popular vote. By the time of Lincoln's inauguration as president, however, 7 southern states had seceded from the Union, and the country soon descended into the American Civil War. While this is the brief history of the two major parties and the two-party system in the US, there have also been attempts at organizing third parties. The Know-Nothing Party, also known as the American Party, rose to prominence in the 1850s. With a secretive and anti-immigrant agenda, they opposed immigration, particularly from Catholic countries, earning their moniker from their cryptic response to inquiries, "I know nothing." The Populist Party, or People's Party, emerged in the 1890s, representing the interest of farmers and laborers. Advocating for reform such as free silver coinage and direct election of senators, they challenged the status quo and left an indelible mark on the American political discourse. In 1912, Theodore Roosevelt led the Progressive Party, also known as the Bull Moose Party, in a crusade for progressive reforms. Their agenda included women's suffrage, workers' rights, and other progressive ideals, leaving a lasting impact on the course of American politics. In 2024, we have a very large set of third-party candidates, ranging from true independents like Professor Cornel West to established minor party candidates like Green Party stalwart Jill Stein to people on the periphery of the major parties such as former Democrat Robert Kennedy Jr. However, a third party or independent candidate has never won the presidential election in the US. One of the key benefits of the two-party system is stability. With only two major parties, the political landscape remains relatively predictable, providing voters with a sense of stability in their choices. Simplicity is another advantage. In a two-party system, voters can easily identify the two main parties and their platforms, simplifying the decision-making process during elections. Moreover, the two-party system ensures majority rule, as one of the two parties typically secure a majority in the legislature, enabling more effective governance. However, the two-party system also presents its share of challenges. One significant drawback is the limited choice available to voters. With only two main parties, main issues and viewpoints may not be adequately represented, leading to dissatisfaction among voters. Additionally, the two-party system often fosters extreme polarization, with parties becoming more ideologically rigid and less willing to compromise. Finally, passing significant legislation can become challenging in a two-party system, as the split electorate necessitates high level of political equity to achieve major policy changes. In the history of USA, leaders also left an enduring mark on American politics, shaping the ideologies of their respective parties. Alexander Hamilton, a key founder, advocated for a strong central government and formed the Federalist Party. Thomas Jefferson, on the other hand, championed states' rights and agrarianism, laying the groundwork for the Democratic Republican Party. Andrew Jackson's presidency marked the rise of populism and reshaped the Democratic Party. Abraham Lincoln solidified the Republican Party's commitment to abolitionism and civil rights during the Civil War era. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal policies defined modern liberalism within the Democratic Party. Ronald Reagan's focus on conservatism shaped the modern Republican movement, and Barack Obama's presidency emphasized progressivism and social liberalism within the Democratic Party. In the 2024 US election, two major contesting parties are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is often referred to as the GOP. This abbreviation stands for Grand Old Party. Its logo is an elephant. The Republicans broadly advocate for traditional values, a low degree of government interference, and large support of the private sector. The Democratic Party, whose logo is a donkey, generally represents left-leaning, liberal, and progressive ideological values, thus advocating for a strong government to regulate business and support for the citizens of the United States. The Democrats believe that a prominent and powerful government can ensure welfare and equality for all. In the presidential election 2024, the Democratic Party is represented by incumbent President Joe Biden, who is being challenged by his Republican rival, former President Donald J. Trump.